This vessel carries my daughter, Kara Zor-El, from the now dead planet Krypton. Treat her as you would your own child, for you will see the treasure she will be for your world. Welcome to Digging for Kryptonite, a Supergirl fan journey. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to discuss Superman Batman, The Supergirl from Krypton by Jeph Loeb and Michael Turner is our pal from All Yeah Comics Skokie, sweet Bernie Gersmeyer. Welcome back.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me back, man. I'm excited to dig into this. It's been a while since I've read it, so it's been great.
This is a big one. Look, I'm excited for all of these episodes that we're doing. My God, next week we're going to be talking about the Kara Kent of Smallville, so you know I'm in my glory whenever we're talking about that show. But I've been enjoying all of these episodes. That's why we're doing them. Nevertheless, this is a big one for a number of reasons, including the fact that this hit me at such a pivotal point in my Superman, Supergirl fan journey. And I look back on this with a lot of fondness. I had an absolute blast revisiting, and I'm really excited to compare notes. This arc by Loeb and Turner reintroduced Kara Zor-El, the cousin from Krypton, to DC Comics continuity. It's one of those things we've seen over the course of these episodes. There are a number of ways to carve up Supergirl's history. Yeah. But if there could only be two, one of them, of course, would be Crisis on Infinite Earths, and the other would have to be this return in this 2004 storyline.
Yeah. This was the same for me. Like I think I got the most excited about Supergirl when I started reading this arc. And then that's kind of where I knew her the most, because I wouldn't say I was super gung-ho or positive about her in the 80s and 90s. A little bit with the Matrix, obviously, like you've talked about, but again, that wasn't the Supergirl. Like wasn't the same thing. So we're going to dig into it today, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thrust of our conversation will be that Superman Batman arc, but we will also talk about the 2010 animated adaptation, Superman Batman Apocalypse. And we'll also talk about Power, which was the first arc of the solo Supergirl series that Jeph Loeb wrote with artist Ian Churchill. So we'll look at this entire era of the character as she's being reintroduced. Well, I guess you already kind of answered my first question. Like, I was curious, just your mindset when this was announced and when the issues started coming out. So yeah, unpack that for me a little bit more. Like, what had your history been with Supergirl? And was this the sort of thing, were you excited? Were you kind of ambivalent? Were you excited more so because of Loeb and Turner? Like, how much of a pull was the Supergirl aspect? Like, take me back to that moment.
Yeah, there's a lot. Okay. There's a lot of unpacking. So again, like, I started reading mostly in the early 90s, and the Supergirl we know was not Supergirl. She was the Matrix Supergirl. After that, I didn't really pay attention or care much about the character. I think I would say I got the most excited about it because the Superman Batman Loeb McGuinness kickoff was just massive. Like, everybody was in. I have the long posters of like the Superman Batman #1 like on my wall still. So just coming out of that, like I was going, oh, the next arc is Supergirl's coming back. Like, what does this mean? And now I only really knew Michael Turner from his like art with Aspen and Fathom and that kind of stuff. And it was beautiful. I mean, I mostly saw like the swimsuit stuff and those characters, but then to see him just doing these incredible splash pages in that arc just blew me away and gave me so much respect for him as a creator and artist.
Dude, 100%. Yeah. A shout out to the late, great Michael Turner, who passed away from cancer at a tragically young age in his late 30s.
Yeah.
And I guess not unlike yourself, I was aware of him, and certainly I saw covers of his on the shelf, but I really hadn't read any of his work before this. Now, I did have buddies at the comic shop who were really into his stuff, so I kind of knew him more because they would talk about him. And in more recent years, as I become great friends with comic book artist V. Ken Marion, who's been on the show many times, like I know Turner was a huge influence on him. Right. So kind of my my wider appreciation of Turner's work has grown. But yeah, at the time, I really wasn't all that familiar, but I was excited, kind of building off of what you were saying. And I can't stress this enough because I know we do have some younger audience members, and not to make myself sound ancient, but I was 17 when this came out, working at the local comic shop, having a ball. And I can't stress what a big deal this was, what an event this was. Not just this arc, but this series, to your point. For a time, these first 2 arcs in particular, Public Enemies and Supergirl, like Superman Batman was the book. That
it was,
in my view, at least, this is what it felt like to me, setting the course for the DCU, or at least for Superman. Arguably Batman as well, but really, you look at those first 2 arcs, they were far more Superman-centric.
Yeah.
But it's like, big things. The first arc finally deposes President Luthor. This arc brings back the cousin from Krypton. We have Ed McGuinness. We have Michael Turner. Like, clearly, DC was putting a lot behind it. And there was so much excitement for that, I think, for me, more than anything.
I think the best way for younger readers, or maybe current readers, to understand, or to maybe align with this as how we're feeling, when Mark Waid and Dan Mora rebooted World's Finest, and how that exploded, and everybody was so excited about this pairing, and it was just big and exciting again, which then kind of pushed us into Superman Unlimited and all these other things. You know, I think it was that kind of linchpin in the early 2000s that just set everything in motion afterwards.
Yes, the only distinction I'll draw, and I don't say this to put down World's Finest, but those are purposely these stories set in the past that can kind of stand on their own. And
I see what you're saying.
They've had some connection points to current events and things like that. But for the most part, you can really kind of read it in a vacuum. Whereas with Superman Batman, it's like this was the book. It was huge. And so I was excited for this arc, less so for the Kara Zor-El of it all, because as I've been talking about in these episodes, I had very little experience with that iteration of the character. Now, last week we talked about Many Happy Returns, the final arc of the previous Supergirl series by Peter David and Ed Benes. You and I were talking about that off mic. And that brought the Silver Age Kara Zor-El into contact with the Linda Danvers, the previous version of our Supergirl. So that, I think, got me thinking about the character a little bit more, but still, this was so new for me. But I do want to say, credit once again to Peter David and Ed Benes, because I think this may very well have happened anyway. Nevertheless, I think they really demonstrated the viability in utilizing Kara Zor-El and showing that there's an appetite for this character.
Right. It couldn't have hurt sales. If anything, it made people go, oh, cool, what's next?
Now, arguably, the other big reason why this happened was Dan DiDio, our old pal Dan DiDio. Now, this too we were talking about before we started. You're not familiar with the story, right, that I'm about to tell?
No, I'm familiar with other shenanigans from that era.
So I guess this is less scandalous than maybe other things that have been bandied about over the years. Actually, guests in recent episodes have mentioned this. They actually clued me into it. And then I had the opportunity to read the intro. Shout out to Case Aiken, who hooked me up with those pages. But I got to read the intro that Loeb wrote to the original collection of Superman, Batman, Supergirl. It's not included in the newer version that I have, but it was in the original one, and I got a chance to read it. And so Loeb tells this whole story about, as the story goes, Dan DiDio was at an amusement park. I believe it was Six Flags. And there were descriptions of the various DC characters. Now, you know what I'm talking about?
No, yes, because I forgot. I read the introduction.
Okay.
Now I know exactly what you're doing, because I have the original trade.
Okay. Right. So Superman, last son of Krypton, all the familiar trappings. I guess he was cool with that. And then he got to the Supergirl entry and all of this business about the protoplasmic matrix and the Earthborn Angel and like tire screeching, I think, for Dan.
Yeah, he lost it. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that got the ball rolling with this idea that we need to return to a more familiar, easily digestible iteration of this character.
Yeah.
Cousin from Krypton. And I guess in his defense, as much as I really, really did love the Peter David series, and I hope that came across in all of the episodes that people have heard over these past couple of weeks, nevertheless, from a business/marketing perspective, of course, I can understand the viability and the value of something akin to what we get here, right?
Now, I'm just curious. Have you thought about it? Did you want to talk about the first time you read it versus the time you reread it? were there differences? How did you feel now rereading it since you read it first?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. I mean, the first time I read it, it really was my introduction to Kara Zor-El. Like I said, the main exception was Many Happy Returns, but there too, you truly were dealing with the Silver Age version of the character. Not literally, I suppose. They never really 100% explained how this was possible, but I think we can kind of chalk it up to hyper time or something to that effect. But for all intents and purposes, it was the Silver Age version, really sweet and innocent. And what we get here is the modern Kara Zor-El. And we get a number of deviations here, and we'll get into it more specifically. But here, for the first time, is the notion that Kara is chronologically older than her cousin, that they departed at the same time, that she's a teenager, she's meant to look after him, but she's stuck in suspended animation here. It's in the kryptonite asteroid. And so she wakes up on this world where he's already all grown up. We also here play with the idea that, contrary to that message on the ship that I read at the beginning, that maybe she's not a treasure for the world. Maybe she's a threat. Certainly that's Batman's concern. So this whole notion of, hey, this might not be what it seems, right? Certainly a departure from what came before. So as I was reading all of this for the first time, I was just along for the ride and really engaged by it. And it was fun and dynamic, and the art was gorgeous. And I was having a blast meeting this, to me, new version of the character. Now, going back, I see those points of departure from what came before. And that is what becomes interesting for me. So yeah, I would just say I've kind of appreciated it now on a couple of different levels. How about yourself?
Cool. So like, as I said, I didn't really know much about Michael Turner except for his art. And after I remember first reading it, I finished it, and not to sound too prude, but I was not happy how kind of almost over-sexualized they made her look. I think that threw me a little bit, where I just remember like the more innocent looking Supergirl, and it for some reason it just rubbed me the wrong way after finishing it. I liked the story idea, but I was like, I really, really appreciated Michael Turner's artwork, but I was hoping they wouldn't continue along that path. And again, this is like, I didn't even have daughters yet, but I was still just like, it just seemed off and too much for me. Having read it now, I guess maybe I'm desensitized to it a little bit more. And I think things have shifted even more maybe in that way. But it didn't, for some reason, it didn't bother me as much this read through. So I don't know, but I really dug the growth of the character in such a short amount of time in those 6 issues. And that's what really stuck with me this read.
Absolutely. Look, this whole idea, this notion that you just brought up has come up in so many of our discussions. And of course, we were going to hit this at some point in this discussion of stories drawn by Michael Turner and then Ian Churchill. So sure. And your point is well taken. And it's one of those things, this has been discussed enough at this point where, I'm sort of content to say that, yes, this was a period of time in these couple of arcs and in the year or so that followed where, yes, there was an overly sexualized depiction of the character. I think the biggest problem with that, so to speak, is her age, right? I mean, arguably we'd have the similar objections either way, but the fact that they make a point of her being 15 to 16 years old, and keeping in mind that these are stories being produced by grown men for a predominantly, at the time at least, male audience. Yeah. It's one of those things that doesn't age great, and clearly even for yourself at the time bumped you a little bit. I mean, I'll say from myself at 17 years old, like, I don't know that it really registered all that much. And I knew enough of Turner's art that I was like, okay, this is his style. This is his thing. As I've addressed in an earlier episode, like, I wasn't titillated by it, but I wasn't offended by it either. I don't know how much it really registered with me. Now, of course, as we're looking at it through a 2026 lens and comparing it to all of these other stories, it's like, sure, it jumps out. And thankfully, you don't see that take in current stories, right? I think we've moved past that. So I think this was a product of its time, but truly, I think the biggest problem is just the age of the character.
Yeah, and they kind of address it in the first arc, the power arc, a little bit. And there's a few comments even where I'm like, whoa, okay, this is definitely a time that would not have flown based on some of the comments written in the books. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, not to get too nerdy about the continuity of it all, but I've been waiting to get to this so we could talk about it. You read New History of the DCU, yeah? Or no?
Very quickly. You're going to have to refresh me.
Okay, so at the time when the Supergirl from Krypton arc came out, it was
That's
bringing,
continuity.
It was bringing the cousin from Krypton to the DC universe, and
Right.
no one in the DC universe had met this version of Supergirl before. Now, I'll take a step back for a second. It's one of these things, and you and I have talked about Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's just like one of those comic book things. You just got to wrap your head around it, because both Barry Allen and Kara Zor-El died in Crisis.
Yes.
Post-Crisis, characters remember Barry Allen. Wally West is always talking about Barry Allen. They know that he was the previous Flash. They know that he died in a great crisis to save the universe. But yet no one knows or remembers Supergirl.
They should not remember that. Yeah.
Right. So when Barry Allen ultimately comes back in Final Crisis, it's, Barry's back. It's not like, who are you? Right?
Yes.
Whereas
it should have been.
When Kara Zor-El shows up in this Superman Batman arc, they've never met her before. Brand new.
Correct.
Okay. And that's the way that I read this story. I took it as it was originally intended. But according to Mark Waid, in the new history of the DC universe, in this story, it was Darkseid resurrecting the pre-crisis Kara Zor-El and brainwashing her, all the business that we do see in the pages of this story that we're here to talk about. But in this new version, it wasn't that Kara Zor-El showed up on Earth for the first time here. Rather, it was that Darkseid resurrected the pre-crisis Kara Zor-El, brainwashed her, she saved, and then she's returned to the DC universe. That's what new history tells us. So I don't know how interested people are in that piece of it, but for the record, right, like in the context of the original story,
right,
Kara Zor-El's a new character. In the context of Mark Waid's new history, this was the original pre-crisis Kara Zor-El returning. So
now I did something different this time through. So I remembered the film less than the book. So I watched the movie first.
Okay.
And was curious, like, okay, I'm going to watch the movie first and then see how different it is from what I remember. And then I reread the book. So just so as we're talking, if that gives you a lens as far as where I hit it, that might hit differently based on our conversation.
Okay. So this animated adaptation, we'll cite more specific instances as we make our way through the beats of the story.
Good.
But big picture, I don't know what happened to me the first time I watched this movie. And because it's one of those things, this came out in 2010. I bought the Blu-ray, I watched it. For whatever reason, I came away with the impression it wasn't particularly strong.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I couldn't tell you why. It was just sort of the sense memory I had. Like that was the impression that movie left me with. But I didn't remember many of the specifics of it. And I watched it at least that first time. Maybe I watched it a second time, but likely not even that. So I reread the comic book arc. And then last night I sat down and I watched the movie again. And I'm like, son of a bitch, this is so good.
It's very good.
The movie is so good. And here's the thing. It is so faithful to the story.
It's so close. It's so close.
But, and you might feel differently. We'll talk about it. But from my perspective, in the few instances where it actually deviates from the book, it improves it.
Agreed. Especially the end.
Especially the end. So I was watching this when I was saying, you dumbass, like what? I don't know why I discounted this movie. Again, 2010, I think it came out September 2010. That was the summer I had made my first documentary film about my local comic shop. I was heading into my second year of law school. I don't know. Maybe my head was just in a different place. Oh, you know what the other thing is though, too? I'm sure I had not reread the comic before watching the movie.
Right.
That's possible. I still should have enjoyed it, but for whatever reason, I really discounted it. All these years I've been holding up the Superman Batman Public Enemies movie, which I still quite like, and always overlooking this one. So audience, if you've never watched Superman Batman Apocalypse, it's a banger. My only notes are these. So it kills me that they felt, and
I know what you're going to say.
They were right. The fact that Supergirl is not in the title of this film, but instead they call it Superman Batman Apocalypse, and not even spelled like the planet Apocalypse, just the generic term Apocalypse.
Yes,
the fact that they felt, right or wrong, that an animated movie with Supergirl in the title wouldn't sell as well kills me.
Yeah.
It's such a generic title. I mean, look, the movie is the movie.
Would have probably helped. It would have helped, if anything. Honestly, if they put Supergirl, it would have helped a ton.
I mean, you already have Superman and Batman in the title.
Yes.
So I don't know why that would have that would have been such an issue, but that gets me. Now, cast-wise, I mean, thankfully we bring back Tim Daly and Kevin Conroy and Susan Eisenberg from the Justice League animated series. We get Ed Asner back as Granny Goodness.
Yep.
They did recast Darkseid.
They did, and I was going to say, man, I was hoping to hear Michael Ironside.
Yeah, especially because we had these other familiar voices. So it really felt out of place. Instead, they went with the late, great Andre Braugher. I mean, one of the all-time great actors. Obviously, he did so much stuff. But the thing I know him best from, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Is Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Which he was out of this world on that. So a fantastic actor. I don't think it was a bad vocal performance. My note, though, I felt that. So I think this is something that could have been smoothed out with maybe some stronger direction. I think if he had slowed it down, it would have been significantly better.
Ironside has a gruffness in his vocalness to begin with. There's just a guttural thing that he does. And Andre's awesome, but he's so smooth. He's so smooth. He's like Motown jazz. I'm like, it just felt too, not nice, but just too smooth. Now, Summer Glau, that's also right post Serenity, like Terminator Chronicles, like she was the it girl at that point, and that was a perfect choice.
She was perfect. Yeah, thank you for mentioning Summer Glau. I guess I didn't include her in my initial round. I was thinking the people who were back or changed, but yeah, we have Summer Glau as Supergirl, and yeah, she was phenomenal. It's one of those things. I don't know that she's done a ton in recent years, but at this moment in time, yeah, I mean, she was it. And I thought she brought a lot to this role. Like I really, really enjoyed her performance. Yeah. I felt like the only weak spot was, unfortunately, was Andre Braugher as Darkseid.
But again, that's still really good in a lineup of heavy hitters too.
100%. And then the last thing here, not even a critique per se, because I'm okay with it. But whenever we're adapting a Jeph Loeb piece, there's something we lose when it's brought to the screen. You guys know where I'm going, right? You've been listening to this podcast long enough. You know what I'm going to say. The narration. And especially in Superman Batman land, when we have this dual track of narration, it just adds so much texture to the proceedings to see what the characters are thinking, but also how Superman and Batman are thinking of each other. I feel like it adds a lot. At the same time, I don't think it would have worked on screen. So I'm okay that we lost it, but there's that one piece of it that does feel a little bit lesser.
I will tell you, rereading it, I just got so excited because I remembered how fond I was of that narration back and forth. Now I will tell you, there is like, you have to kind of get back into that vibe because like they don't do that as much in current books. So it actually forces you to almost reread the page in a sense where you're already looking at the art, you're already kind of looking at the dialogue, but then you're like, wait, how this dialogue was said based on this narration is so interesting, and where it's placed on the page is so interesting. So, man, I miss it. I really do miss it, and I love that voice so much.
Speaking of the placement, I mean, Jeph Loeb, he considers letterer Richard Starkings his lucky charm. And yes, that's one of those things. It's so easy. I know we never talk about lettering, but it's so easy to take that for granted, but it's an art and it makes a huge difference. So I'm glad we mentioned that. One thing, and this will sort of bridge us into the comic itself, but while I'm okay with us losing the narration, there was dialogue at the beginning of the comic book story between Batman and Superman, where Superman's sequestered in the fortress while Bruce and the other heroes of the DC universe are collecting all of these kryptonite samples that landed after the kryptonite asteroid from Public Enemies was destroyed. And they're going back and forth, and Bruce is giving him a hard time. He's like, do you want me to call Lois? Right. And then he makes a crack about the dog. I felt like, narration aside, like that dialogue would have been helpful to help set up that dynamic between them. So the fact that we lost that little bit of banter at the beginning of the movie, I felt like we left a little something on the table, minimal, but just wanted to mention that.
Well, also we left Lois off the table.
But she wasn't in the comic either.
Yes, she is.
Where?
I'm almost positive she's in the comic towards the end. Like I thought she visits the island at one point.
All right, I think we're gonna have to pause and answer this about Lois because in my memory she's not in the comic. So shall we check?
Maybe.
All right, let's check. I'm gonna grab my book. Well, obviously I'll edit this out.
Okay, good. Yep.
All right, so we took a second, we double checked, and the verdict is?
Yeah, the answer is no. Bernie, imagine that, and Mandela affected it into existence.
Okay, but this is a perfect segue because yes, both the comic book story arc and the animated movie do not include Lois Lane.
Right.
But this ties in with where Superman is in this story because it opens, the comic at least, with Superman via narration talking about how he's alone. To Loeb's credit, in the very next sentence, he acknowledges the fact, I have Lois, I have my parents, but I'm still alone in the universe.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because I think there's a difference between being alone, i.e. literally being the last member of the Kryptonian race versus being lonely. I don't think he's lonely, but he is alone out there in a cosmic sense. And so I think that's what he's feeling. And I think it was almost certainly a deliberate choice to not surround Superman with Lois and the Kents in this story, because I think it helps drive home his perspective with all of this. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to talk about the Kents in the movie, though. That's something else we can talk about towards the end.
They're playing for a joke there. Yeah.
Weird moment, too. Like, weird way to draw the Kents, I feel, too. But anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the last kind of big picture contextual piece of this before we get into the more specific beats of the story is just where we are in DC Comics history. And this has come up numerous times on the podcast. You and I talked about this when we did one of our Lex Luthor discussions years ago, because we're now at the point in time, we're not yet at Infinite Crisis, after which we'll have yet more pre-crisis elements injected into the proceedings. But we are approaching some sort of inflection point here. So during the Loeb Kelly era, they were able to get Krypto the super dog back. Now they had to kind of backdoor their way into that. There was the Krypton from the Phantom Zone, and that's where Krypto came from. But still, it's like Krypto's back.
Yeah.
Then in Public Enemies, you get Lex in the battle suit, the green war suit.
And not just Lex in the battle suit, but as we're going to talk about, Lex with a Kryptonian Infinity Gauntlet. Like, all the different types of kryptonite in his fist.
Well, we'll get that. We'll get that in the power arc. In the power arc as a result of that kryptonite asteroid, because it's not just green kryptonite.
Everything.
So Krypto, Lex in the war suit, different varieties of kryptonite, now Kara Zor-El, all before Infinite Crisis. So, you know, here we are almost 20 years after Crisis on Infinite Earths. And we've been in this mode where Kal-El is the sole survivor. And we've had all of these different spins on characters. But now the walls are breaking here. The barriers are coming down. And you get Kara Zor-El in an instance like this. And I guess what I want to say on this front is, because we talked a lot about the post-crisis reboot and the stress test that put the mythology through and everything. And I think I'm sorting this out as we're talking, but it's like, I do think Kara's quote unquote return to continuity hits more and is more impactful because of this long absence and these other versions of the character. I think there's something to be said for this journey that we went on as readers before you get to this point.
I think it's easy for us to kind of talk in a vacuum about, well, when we have these conversations, they feel very back to back, but we're talking about 20 years between Crisis and this moment. And there's that's a lot of months of issues and stories and arcs. It's not exactly like Supergirl was gone for like even 50 issues. I mean, we're talking about 20 years. We're talking about 240 issues of no Supergirl, or in this continuity base. So, I mean, it's a big deal. Like, I think eventually, I just talked to a friend who was connecting about how is Superman still so relevant and still has creative stories. Like, DC's pumping out new cool stuff, but it's been around we're pushing almost 90 years. So just 20 years of books. Like people are like, okay, so Crisis was 86. What do we do now? We better bring them all back because people are getting bored. So I think that's ultimately what we found here, especially in the early 2000s, coming up to Crisis.
Yeah, I think multiple reasons that maybe speak to why these returns work or why they can work. I think absence makes the heart grow fonder. You build up some desire for these characters and concepts, and then there's this appetite when they return, but also you're getting to see them spun with modern storytelling sensibilities.
Yes.
And we love a lot of our pre-crisis stories and the Silver Age wildness and those crazy ideas. But there's something to be said for now applying a modern storytelling perspective to these things.
Yeah.
And in terms of what we get here, the characterization of Kara Zor-El and her dynamic with Clark, there's so much more that can be mined. And what's interesting, I guess, and I feel this all the more so because of this journey I've had going through these older stories, is that there are certain echoes of what came before, where Clark thinks he knows what's best for her.
Right.
But unlike in those early stories, no, he's not just dumping her at an orphanage here and telling her when she can debut to the world. Here, ultimately, it's a journey for him to get to this point, but he does get to the point where he says to her, only you can decide what you're going to do. And then she makes that choice to become Supergirl. So it's interesting to see kind of what remains, but then how we can now push it further. This podcast is an affiliate of BCW Supplies. The next time you need to restock on comic book bags, boards, boxes, and more, be sure to use promo code FSP to save 10% on your order. That's FSP for Flat Squirrel Productions. It helps support the show too. Thank you. I talk about Smallville a lot, but when it comes to listening, one podcast is at the top of my queue. Always Hold On to Smallville, hosted by our pal, Zach Moore. Zach and his guests bring tremendous insight, passion, and humor to each and every episode. And while their series rewatch has concluded, the podcast continues with more great Smallville and Superman talk. Listen wherever you get podcasts and keep an eye out for the other shows on the Always Hold On To network. Step into the refraction with Drunken Avenger #1, The Volunteer, an indie comic by Rick Reason that turns the tropes upside down. 4 men died in 9 seconds. John Stevens survived, but survival has a price. Now, the government calls him a variable. The media calls him the Drunken Avenger. And the city of Meridian is caught in the crossfire between civil liberty and national security. Follow @Drunken Avenger on social media for project updates and previews. All right, let's segue more specifically into the beats of the Supergirl from Krypton. And in this opening part here, like I said, we have this back and forth between Batman and Superman as Batman is underwater scouring Gotham Harbor for these kryptonite samples.
Yes.
So it's a great follow-up to Public Enemies, where we had this approaching kryptonite asteroid. It's destroyed, but now we have all of the remnants hitting. And we have these different varieties of kryptonite, which will pay off when we get to that power arc in Supergirl. And like you said, Alexa has that gauntlet of the different colors. You and I have talked about the different shades of kryptonite, and as always, I don't want them to overdo it, but I like the idea, and I think it's a fun story generator.
I was mad there was not a Periwinkle one right on his pinky.
He's got 2 hands. I mean, I feel like we could
a full spectrum.
I feel like we could have gone even further. This is jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things I love about this Supergirl arc, it's such a minor moment, but later when they're examining the ship and everything, Batman has this line, Bruce has this line to Clark where he's like, you know what this means? Lex was actually right about Superman's presence on Earth drawing this asteroid, because the idea is that the navigational system in the rocket is to him.
Yes.
Just like, Now, I think Clark has a very reasonable response where he's like, be that as it may, there's no way Lex could know that. Right. And then they point to this idea that Darkseid might have because of this alliance, but there's no way Lex could have known that. So I think that makes it a little bit better, but it was just kind of funny after all this business, like Lex is crazy. Like, it's like, well, actually he was kind of right.
This one. Yeah.
So he was kind of right. So we have Batman find the ship underwater, and then we have the naked Kara Zor-El get into the bat boat, crash, big explosion. And then she approaches these dock workers who, of course, have nefarious intentions, and she makes quick work of them and makes off with one of their jackets. And then she's running through the streets of Gotham and unwillingly causing all of this destruction as her powers are kicking in and she doesn't know what's going on. We're going to be talking about this in an upcoming episode, but did you read the beginning of the New 52 Supergirl by any chance?
Who was the creator on that one?
Michaels, Johnson, and Green.
Oh no, you know what? I didn't. I feel like I read a little there. They did the very end of the Superman Batman run.
Okay.
And I missed. Yeah. So no, sorry.
The reason I bring it up, it's just kind of an interesting mirror image of what would come later in the New 52, because here in Superman Batman, Kara is only speaking the Kryptonian language and she doesn't understand what is being said to her. And we don't get her inner narration. So so we're just kind of seeing and feeling her confusion, her disorientation.
Yeah.
In the New 52 opening arc, it's similar in that there's also a language barrier, but the difference there is that we're getting her inner monologue in English. And we're getting her word bubbles translated for us. Yeah. So it's different, obviously different series. Like that was a Supergirl book. And so I think it was fitting that they allowed us into her POV, but it was just kind of interesting here, right? It's a Superman Batman story and it's really playing up this mystery of who this girl is who fell to Earth. And is there something, something nefarious underfoot that we don't know about quite yet? So I think it really played into that, but it was just kind of interesting. Similar disorientation and language barrier in both of these stories, but one kind of lets you in to what she's actually thinking and the other one doesn't.
Yeah. I think that her growing into her powers and even learning the language, I think that was flushed out really well in the animated film.
Sure.
Like they had a little more time to do it. And it just came off very, very well.
Yeah. And then Batman obviously subdues her with kryptonite and brings her back to the cave and she breaks free of the restraints. But of course, Superman is there to grab her. If I'm not mistaken, he grabs her by the foot as she starts to fly off, right?
Yes.
Which we would see Tom Welling's Clark do a couple of times on Smallville as well, that grabbing him by the leg. In the final moments of that opening chapter, there's a lengthy exchange between Kal and Kara, all in Kryptonian.
Yeah.
How did that land for you? Are you glad that we didn't get it translated for us? Do we need it translated for us?
Well, and I was trying to remember both reading it and in the film that how much does I couldn't remember when do we know that Clark knows Kryptonian well enough to speak. I was trying to think about like when did he pick up all of that? Again, that's an all other. But I actually liked that because then it was hearkening to the no, there's no way she would know English.
Right.
Like she's trying to just communicate. And then Clark goes, oh, I just translated this in my cousin.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the fact that she wouldn't know English totally makes sense. I was thinking more just about the fact that the comic itself doesn't translate it for us, for the reader.
Oh, yeah, at all.
Right? Yeah. But I think that ultimately was an effective choice. It made it a real quick page to read, but also I think ultimately in terms of even just punctuation and, punctuation, I think gives you a little bit of a sense of what's being said, but the art, it allows the art to really shine here. And at the end of the day, you get the gist of it. I will say, I do remember back in the day, one of my buddies at the comic shop, he got his Kryptonian alphabet out. He translated it. Oh, it's in the collected edition?
It's in here. Yeah. And it made me really happy because I have Kryptonian on my wrist.
Oh, right on.
So it was correct. So it does spell Lana correctly in my Kryptonian tattoo.
I wish I had my original collected edition because the newer one doesn't have that. But I do remember just my buddy at the time, before he had the trade to rely on, he was looking it up and translating it. So, we're going to get deeper into the story here. This is our kind of inciting incident. But I think overall, one of the things that was so compelling about this was to see everyone's perspective and agenda with respect to Kara. For Clark, he's quick to accept. His instinct is that she is who she says she is. And this is now, the significance of this is that he's now no longer alone in the universe. So he's a believer pretty much from the jump. Batman naturally felt very much in character. He's not buying it. He's going
Right.
to ask the questions. He's going to be cautious. He's going to insist on this quarantine period in the fortress. Like Batman's perspective made total sense. We'll get into Wonder Woman very shortly. And then, of course,
Right.
Darkseid will enter the picture and see a weapon that he can co-opt and use to run his honor guard on Apocalypse. So it's just interesting. All of these different players kind of vying to control the destiny of this young girl. And ultimately only she can make that choice for herself. But I thought it was just kind of interesting to see the mix at play here.
Well, let me ask you, do you feel that Clark was being naive?
Hard to say. It's funny. I said this on my new Batman show, Lighting the Bat Signal, that there are numerous instances along the way where, as much as I love Superman, and he always has been and always will be my favorite character, there are times where I do find myself more aligned with the Batman way of thinking, and I do think that skepticism and that caution is something that I identify with. So maybe there's a little bit more of a middle ground. Like when we get to the top of this next issue here, I mean, Bruce is pretty short and harsh with Kara. Yeah. Like I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but the questions that he's raising, I think, are legitimate. So I don't know that I fall in line totally with one or the other, but there could be an argument to what you're posing with respect to Superman.
But it's interesting that I would bet too, and again, I've known you for a long time, but still, would you say that your alignment closer to the Batman needle has shifted over the last 10 years?
I don't know.
Because I've noticed that I think our culture has become more skeptical of truth and like less hopeful and more cynical. So I wonder if, because it's invading our culture, is that how we're leaning more? Even though you and I are like, Superman is our homeboy. Like, it's so interesting that sometimes we're like, but Clark, dude, come on, bro. Like, I know you're hopeful and you show grace, but come on, pay attention.
Yeah. It's a good question. And it's a tough question, I think, in this specific context, because there really isn't anything necessarily to raise the alarm, but at the same time, there's nothing to really corroborate anything either. Like, this is not a situation where he can go talk to AI Jor-El in the fortress and be like, hey, what's this girl all about? What's the deal?
Now, we are not that far off from, I mean, again, we're only 10 years or not that much time off from they were false Supermen.
Yeah.
After he died, like, people were thinking, oh, the cyborg, he's great.
Well, and also, I mean, this Supergirl is coming out of a kryptonite asteroid that was threatening the destruction of the planet that Lex and Darkseid knew about, right? So so I don't know, maybe to walk back what I said a moment ago, I think maybe there are a couple of flags that we can raise. Yeah. So it's it, but I think that's what makes the conflict between Batman and Superman, and then later Wonder Woman as well, all the richer. Because when we get to the Wonder Woman piece, there's this whole other component where Lila, Harbinger, who's living on Paradise Island, is having these visions, and there's this whole idea about Kara bringing death and destruction. So different forces at play here.
Do you know, or did you do a little bit of a dive on the when and the why Lila is there?
Nope.
Because I was really kind of, I'm going to kind of look it up eventually, but I didn't know. And I'm like, how is Harbinger in our post-crisis universe? That was my first question. I didn't even look it up.
I did not. I didn't then or now. I didn't really necessarily think she was still in play or living on Paradise Island, but her function here is effective.
Yeah, she's pretty important because she sacrificed herself for Kara.
Yeah. So when we pick up in part 2 of the Supergirl from Krypton, time has passed. It's been a few weeks or months, something like that.
I think a month.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it's at the top of this issue where Batman and Superman, they're investigating the rocket, and there's that message about the treasure. And here too, it's like, I totally buy Batman's take on this, where he's like, are you sure we've translated treasure correctly? Superman's like, like, we've been over this many times.
Yeah.
But what does that make you think of? A message on a ship with potentially a dire warning. What comes to mind?
Smallville.
100%. I mean, I have to imagine that kind of speaks to some shared DNA and Loeb's involvement with both.
And the new Superman movie actually even like harkens back to that, like which message is the right message.
Yeah, absolutely. As audience members and Smallville viewers will recall, during season 2, there's this message in Clark's ship about ruling them with strength. And it's this amazing moment that we end the Rosetta episode on, where Clark's talking to Jonathan in the storm cellar. He's like, I think I was sent here to conquer. And Jonathan reassures him, and they embrace, and then the camera pans around and you see Jonathan's face, and it's like, uh-oh. Unfortunately, the show never had an exit strategy for that whole idea.
Yes. But it's kind of like Jonathan going like, I hope I'm right about this one.
You get to the beginning of season 10 when Clark is teetering between life and death, and Jor-El reaches out and he's like, I told you to rule them with strength, but you chose the martyr's path. And that's it, though. It's never smoothed out beyond that, but at least they referenced it again. But that's what I had in my mind. And I think you go back to those early stories, and Kara Zor-El crash lands, and Superman just takes it at face value. They realize they're cousins. Boom, like we're off and running.
Yes.
So the fact that this story is now mining the uncertainty of this and the potential threat made a lot of sense. And I think is another justification for why you would do a story like that, or bring back a character like this. Because it's like, well, now we have all these other tracks that we can explore that those original stories were not built for.
Yes. I hate that now I kind of put it in the current lens of, so what if this happened for real? Like, what would it look like if this actually, besides the fact, what if Superman existed, which kind of was done well in the new movie of how would popular culture embrace him and then go, whoa, dude, I'm going to throw a beer can at your head because I think you're not on the up and up. But how would this, what if this happened? Like, would we just trust that she's not a bad alien, or she's like Superman?
Yeah. And then Kara bursts in because Krypto is chasing after her, and Bruce sends her to a room, which again, very harsh. But I did like this moment where Bruce calls out the fact that Krypto doesn't like her. And Clark's like, he doesn't like anybody.
Right.
So that made me laugh. But then we get this moment between Bruce and Kara where he asks her again to recount what she remembers. Because this is the other thing, and I was mentioning this before, the spotty memory.
Yeah.
I guess before we even go further, how does this land for you? The fact that, like, unlike in the original story, she doesn't show up and have this full recitation of everything that she experienced on Krypton.
Right.
It's like her memory is exceedingly spotty. How does that play for you?
I mean, I feel like we've seen this in a lot of sci-fi shows. In some cases where there's this, like, after suspended animation, like almost like a brain fog kind of vibe. I feel like it's like when doctors, like, you get a really bad concussion or something that creates an amnesia that eventually goes away, but you're like, I don't even know I don't know where I live. I think that's the way I read it when I first noticed it. But again, that would create such a cynic, like, Batman's so from the fool me once, like, train of thought. And when she goes, like, didn't he ask her what her mother's name is?
Yes, he did. Right. So she recounts what little she remembers, and essentially just this notion that her parents placed her on this rocket as Krypton was being destroyed. So we're not in the realm of Argo City floating in space. This is Kara Zor-El who departed from Krypton. Or I guess the idea is she didn't actually depart. Like, the rocket just got stuck in that asteroid and then was floating all those years, and she was in suspended animation. Now, when we cut ahead to the Sterling Gates run on the title, we learn. Well, we're going to get back into the floating city of Argo and all of that business. But, like, at the outset here, she was just departing from Krypton. But,
and we're going to talk more. We learn more in the Power series, like, that there's more to it between the Zor-El of it all.
Well, and so that's the thing where I think that's the other reason why they went with the spotty memories, because once again, like, they're playing into this idea that, well, there might be something going on with her that could be a threat. And so she doesn't have the full picture. The other characters don't. And then that creates space as we get into that power arc. And also then the subsequent issues of that Supergirl series, which really played up the idea of a villainous Zor-El. Yeah. Ultimately, that will all be retconned. We'll talk about it. But I think that too, I mean, I don't know how far in advance Loeb was really planning here, but certainly this opens the door for something to be up, right?
Yes.
So we have that. But yes, to your point, Bruce asks her mother's name, and at this point in the story, she can't remember. Now, there's a lovely, lovely payoff much later where she says, Allura. He's like, I remember, if it still matters to you. And he's like, it does. It's like, yeah, you ain't kidding. Mother's names matter a lot to Bruce.
As long as it's not Martha, we're good.
I was saying to myself,
why'd you say that name?
I know. I was like, imagine if she was like Martha. He'd be like, what? Why'd you say that name?
Marthel.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that did make me laugh. But yeah, I mean, it like that. Oh, and the other thing too, though, that really resonated was I think it's here. This idea comes up multiple times between the Loeb Turner arc and Power, where Kara expresses this idea of like, I watched my parents die right in front of my eyes. You have no idea what that's like. To Batman, right? And obviously that hits home. We know his origin story. She doesn't at this point, but it's one of those things where it's funny. I don't know how much it makes him identify with her. I don't know that it really has that effect necessarily. But it's just interesting to see, you know, it is Superman Batman, this title that we're talking about here. And then, yes, obviously the stronger connection point is with Superman, but there is also this parallel to Batman as well. And I like that. And there's this an idea that she brings up later on about how they're essentially like her foster parents. I think she includes Wonder Woman in this as well. But really speaking to the role that each of them, this Trinity, is going to have in shaping her. And so I liked the fact that these stories kind of drew that parallel between her and Batman. That really, I thought, was effective. So it's at this point, Clark insists on getting her out of the fortress. She's been quarantined for a while, and he takes her to Metropolis. Now here is where I thought the movie added a wonderful bit here. There's this whole extended sequence in the movie, this montage of Kara going shopping, trying on all these different outfits, getting her nails done. Whereas in the comic, we just pick up the aftermath of that. Yes. Where he's like, well, you've got the shopping part of being an Earth girl down. But I thought actually getting to see her joy at experiencing all of this on Earth, I thought that went a long way. So I thought that was a great addition of the movie. Well,
and I kind of thought it humanized Clark even more too, because how often do we see him do that? Like he's almost like we're seeing Uncle Clark take out, you know, Kara to go get some clothes. We don't see that a lot. We see him doing Superman things.
Well, a couple of things on this front. So, and not to be nitpicky, but you know, he is in his full suit.
Yes,
and he just like it makes him read as older. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, because at this point in the story, I don't know, maybe we are leaning into a little bit more of this contrast between them, but it kind of calls to mind something that I brought up when we talked about Supergirl in the animated series, where unfortunately there, I felt like it did have the effect of making Clark seem even older and like more of a stick in the mud, as opposed to a little bit closer and more dynamic. But so I just kind of had that thought of him in his suit here in this moment.
He just seemed like a dad.
Right. Like, which, I think in this specific context, probably not the worst thing, but But then there's a part of me that's like, I don't know, dress them down a little bit and maybe make them feel like they're relating to each other a little bit more.
Well, and make them like, if they're cousins, even though there's possibly 20 years between them, he could be wearing just a t-shirt and jeans. Like he could be out there with her. It was I think the protective side of his demeanor the whole time is more fatherly than cousin-like.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would agree with that. So the other thing is, especially in the movie, this whole montage of the shopping, the nails and all of that.
Yeah.
I guess it's a pretty stereotypical view of what a young girl would be interested in. Yet at the same time, I don't know, statistically, there's probably truth to it. As a parent of daughters, like, did this ring true for you? Or did you watch that and think, oh, they could have had her exploring the city in a different way? Like, how did that land with you specifically?
Of course it's exaggerated, but literally today, after church, we had to go pick up like athletic tape for my younger daughter, and she's like 20 now. I can't tell. We spent 30 minutes walking through all the clothing area, and she was like, well, what about this shirt? Oh, this is a cute pair of pants. Oh, this dress is on sale. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we came here for tape. Like, so I kind of think it does track pretty well.
Okay. Yeah. Right on. Like I said, I think there is truth to that and everything. And I do also love this moment where first she questions like, oh, people really don't recognize you as Superman because of the glasses. And then she sees the statue of him.
Yes.
And it's this great moment where she's like, oh, that's how they see you. Like, no wonder why they're not looking for you among them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a powerful moment. And then they're ambushed by the Amazons. Well, I guess by Harbinger and Artemis and ultimately Wonder Woman herself. Because Wonder Woman and Batman off off screen, off panel, have been in cahoots because they share
Yes.
these concerns. We've talked about Batman's reservations. We'll learn from Wonder Woman's side. There are these visions that Harbinger is having, this business about Kara bringing death and destruction. And so they also want to test Kara to see how she would react if attacked in public.
Well, and it wasn't just about how she reacts in public, but how much destruction would ensue if she's attacked in public. Sidebar, am I the only one that gets, like, every time that statue, I love that statue. Every time that statue gets demolished in any sort of media, I'm like, oh man, can I get like sad?
I get sad. And also you think, like, at what point do they just say, all right, maybe we don't rebuild it this time?
Yeah. Do you make it out of maybe something stronger? Like,
I have to tell you, I was so enraged on Clark's behalf toward Bruce and Diana for what they did here, ambushing them and taking her to Paradise Island. I mean,
I'd be pissed off.
Yeah,
like
right.
If it's one of my daughter, I'd be upset. Like, you're talking about us behind our backs. Like, what are you talking about?
I mean, I don't know, playing devil's advocate, it's like we're talking about, I don't think their concerns are totally unwarranted. Like we said, maybe Clark is being too trusting. He's too quick to want to have this familial connection. At the same, and maybe because of that, they're so convinced that he would resist, that this was the only way for them to do it. Obviously they get past this, but it really frustrated me on his behalf. And it's an interesting thing because here we are in 2004. We're not that far away from Infinite Crisis.
Right.
And as audience members will recall, like, we start that event with this fracture among the members of the Trinity. And to the best of my recollection, this specific bit of business is not mentioned at the top of Infinite Crisis. There's all of this about Bruce had created Brother Eye and has been spying on them. Wonder Woman murdered Maxwell Lord. Superman apparently isn't inspiring people. But I think you can also read into those disagreements between them this bit of business here, right? Even though it's not explicitly cited, it's like, I would have to imagine that would linger.
It's just mistrust, but like you said, it's warranted. And I was arguing with myself saying, well, if anybody's going to stop Kara, it's Clark. But then Bruce points out, like, hey, just for the record, she seems more powerful than you right now.
Right.
And that was mentioned a number of times. And then she even loses him. Like, we find out later that she's able to outrun him and lose him. And so I guess while I'm going, well, who do they think is going to ultimately stop this? It might still not be Clark. Like, so that's why Batman and Wonder Woman are still so upset.
Yeah. It's one of those things, but I think it makes for good conflict because there's a part, the Superman fan in me wants to say, how dare you two? Like, who do you think you are? Like, those eyes are going to light up red and you're going to be in big trouble. But this is the Trinity. And I do think this, I don't know, I guess this could cut both ways. On the one hand, well, if they are this close and they see each other as equals, how could they go behind his back and do something? But at the same time, because of how close they are and how they respect each other, and they are on equal footings in their own way, that they felt comfortable enough to do this.
Well, and that's the thing, because I was just even thinking as you're saying that, like, how many times really in the history of that Trinity have they all been just hunky-dory each other? Like, at least one of them is frustrated with the other two at some point in that. And like, God, what was it? Oh, in the KO recently. That's one of the most recent times you see the three of them sitting around playing a board game together.
Right.
And I'm like, how often do we even think about them being this common kind? Usually somebody's pissed off at one of the other ones. So it tracks.
Yeah, fair enough. And what I will say too is just kind of big picture, as much as this is a Superman Batman story, it's really a Superman Batman Wonder Woman story. Like, it's sort of a low key Trinity arc, which is really cool. I want to say they could have included Wonder Woman in the title of the movie, but I guess that that wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
But I do like that the Trinity gets the spotlight the way they do here. Also, though, speaking of the movie, there's an extended moment in the movie that you don't get here in the comic, where, because the way the second part of the comic ends, Wonder Woman's holding Kara and she's like, she's coming with me. chapter 3, they're on Paradise Island already. But in the animated movie, that sequence goes on a little longer, and you see Clark relent.
Yeah.
And allow Wonder Woman to take her over Kara's protestation.
And,
that killed me.
Yes. And Kara's like, how could you let them take me?
Yeah. By the way, in the animated movie, they do call her Kara, but I'm still sticking with my Kara
I know,
track.
my brain goes.
It's all right.
I'm so messed up. I say Kara.
But, that broke my heart.
Yeah.
The fact that she was pleading with him.
Well, it's almost like, again, like it's the adoption thing. Like you're letting them take me. Like it's almost, you're taking me to I'm going to the Amazon orphanage.
That's true. That's true. We get a version of an orphan in some way, shape, or form. We're going to be in that mode. So then we go over to Paradise Island. She's been there for a while. She's been training. She's engaging in this sparring session with Artemis.
Yeah.
She loses. Artemis is about to strike with the sword. Superman intervenes. I did like, they lose this in the movie, but in the comic, I really like how a little bit later, there's this moment where Clark apologizes to Artemis and she's like, it's okay. That's your family. Like, I understand. Yeah. And I like that moment. I felt like, I feel like Artemis would have that perspective.
Well, and they even point out, it's like, Clark, like, were you really going to snap Artemis's neck? And he's like, if I had to. And it's like, oh, what? Like, this is not okay.
But but you see, I mean, I think that's the other thing here is that you do see him be a bit quick-tempered and you see that anger come out. And would we want that to be the mode for the character all the time? No, but But strategically, it's great. And look, we're going to get to the Darkseid battle. And it's like, this is another one of those things. Like when you see him like let loose against Darkseid, it's there's something so viscerally satisfying about just seeing him let loose. It's like, he just hates this guy.
Oh yeah. And he knows that he has to, in order to actually knock this guy down, that's all he has to do. He can't live like it's cardboard.
My comic shop closed over a decade ago. But if there's one place where I feel that same sense of camaraderie, it's Fat Moose Comics, New Jersey's best and oldest comic book store, led by current owner Sean Hendricks. If you're looking for something and they don't have it, they can probably get it for you. They know a guy. Visit Fat Moose in Whippany, New Jersey, and be sure to reach out via the Fat Moose Comics Facebook page. Ever wonder what would happen if a person who knew barely anything about comics decided to absorb hundreds of Superman stories from all eras and media? That's exactly what Robbo is doing on This Podcast Will Never Die, which starts with all the ways the Man of Steel stood out on the newsstands in 1938. Listen and subscribe to This Podcast Will Never Die, and you'll never look at Superman's trunks the same way again. We love digging into epic comic book runs, but what about the art of the single issue? Single Bound is a podcast series hosted by married couple Amy and Logan as they review single issues of comics, many of them starring the Man of Steel, Logan's favorite character. Listen and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube, and follow the show on Instagram at Single Bound Podcast. But now we have these boom tubes opening, and we get first a Doomsday, but then we get this whole army of Doomsdays. What an action set piece this turned out to be.
First of all, because I watched the movie first, and I swear that I'm going like, I don't remember a whole crap ton of Doomsdays in the book. So I'm like, they must have added this in the movie. And then sure enough, that was exactly, it wasn't as long, but I was like, holy crap, they actually put this in the book. There's Doomsdays everywhere. And it was awesome.
Great bit of continuity here because as folks might recall, we had this alliance between Lex and Darkseid.
Yep.
And then at the end of the milestone Superman number 175, which was a Joker's Last Laugh tie-in and an aftermath to Our Worlds at War, you had Lex turning over Doomsday's body to Darkseid. And so now you find out here that Doomsday created this army of lifeless clones, right? That's the twist here. And I guess this ends up being our character's saving grace because I don't know that they would have been able to defeat an army of true Doomsdays. But these are lifeless replicants that Superman is ultimately right. They don't bleed. They don't have heartbeats, and Superman is able to wipe them all out with this forceful wave of heat vision.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Again, like the moment that like I think somebody stabs him, he doesn't bleed, and then I feel like there was also somehow a way to figure out that they're mindless. Like they're not really alive. And at that point, that gave the okay, they're not alive. And then Superman just wipes them out. He goes, everybody stand back. I can only do this once. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That
And
was so
I
cool.
love that. I was like, oh, this is great. They're like pulling out all the stops in this story arc.
And that whole action sequence, it was reminiscent to me of Zack Snyder's Justice League and Steppenwolf versus the Amazons.
Oh yeah.
You know?
When they do like the year one stuff, especially too, when they're going back and showing the history of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But what Batman clocks is that there was a second boom tube that opened where Lila and Kara were swimming. And there's this moment at first, there's only one blonde, lifeless body there in the water. And the fear is that it's Kara. It turns out to be Lila. And then I guess we get a glimpse of one of Harbinger's visions, and they see that it was Darkseid. And of course they knew the boom tubes and all of that. But that's what was happening off panel, was the Furies arrived on this other part of the island, killed Lila, and captured Kara.
Well, and I couldn't remember that little issue because I remember watching the movie and going, wait, what is that vision all about? And I couldn't remember that that's how that goes down, that Lila actually is the one in Superman's arms covered in the cape.
So you asked before about Harbinger being there. And I mean, I think ultimately, right, like they needed a blonde doppelganger, right? who could be this red herring where it's like, oh my God, Kara's going to die. It's like, well, no, this was the fake out. So
yeah, they're not going to kill Power Girl. Like, and they're not going to, I mean, they could have made it a random Amazon, but again, that wouldn't have the same kind of impact.
Yeah. And it also fed into why Diana was even more invested, right?
Yes.
I will say, going back a second here, it's like, while I still am very frustrated with how Bruce and Diana went about this, it's not that there isn't any validity to Diana's perspective. Like, being as detached and objective about this as possible, Paradise Island almost certainly is the best place for her. Like at this point, as she's learning to control her powers, right? The safest place she can learn, she can train.
Well, and all those Amazons can take a hit. Like, it's so much more secluded. And if anything goes wrong, it's not like it's in the middle of Metropolis where it happens. Yeah,
it's funny. Like, whenever there are characters who need to be placed in a safe house of some sort, it's like, yes, there's the fortress. Yes, there's the Kent farm. We love all of that. But yeah, Paradise Island, that might be a little bit more of a viable alternative.
Yeah. I'm surprised we don't use like New Genesis more, like to send people there.
Yeah. Well, it's too hard to get to and from. Yeah,
I guess. Magically, we got these boom tubes popping up all over the place. So between Cyborg and Barda.
On that note, so our next couple of issues here now.
Dude, it's so good.
We're going to follow our Trinity and Barda to Apocalypse to reclaim Kara. And, very humorous bit here where Superman and Wonder Woman show up at Barda's suburban home, much to the surprise of the neighbors. And of course, Batman's already inside. Yeah. And they enlist her help. They need to get to Apocalypse to rescue Kara. She insists on coming with them, which it's like, why even argue with her? It's like, you need all the help you can get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Big Barda. Don't, she's going to help you more than hurt you.
And then we get that awesome image when they boom tube onto Apocalypse. I posted that on social media and I was like, that's like me and Bernie showing up to record our episode.
Yeah, baby. And it was like Reservoir Dogs, but like all of them just showing up on the planet together.
So we have essentially 3 tracks here when they're on Apocalypse. So we have Barda and Diana facing off against the Furies. And all of this was great. And even just the moment where Barda's like, I know this isn't the best time, but like, you're such an inspiration to me. So I like that between them.
I also love there's the preface to all of this before Darkseid says, go get Supergirl. Because now this scene in the movie is much longer than what happens in the book, but them trying to audition the new guard that after Barda's left, that's not only badass, but brutal. Like it was pretty rough and they downplayed it quite a bit in the comics in that one panel. But man, they did not hold anything back. And it also shows you how freaking terrifying the Furies are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It was awesome. I love that. I loved all of the Apocalypse stuff in this arc.
It was great. I mean, and then we get to the point where the Furies get the drop on Barda and they've got a sword to her neck and they're trying to get Diana to stand. And I loved Barda. She's like, never relent. Let them kill me. And then Diana, I think it plays out differently here in the book versus the movie, but in the book, if I'm not mistaken, she lassos Granny Goodness's neck. Great. I love that. Yeah. So I love the two of them and perfect characters to pair up. The 2 warriors, you see they're cut from the same cloth, the same philosophy, same approach. I love that. then you get Batman. Oh, you know what? I almost forgot about this, but it made me think of it because, he's in that flying harness a la Orion.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And it made me think of, do you remember the line of action figures they did based on this arc? It was a DC Direct thing.
And there is a sled. Like, he is on a thing.
No, I remember that line very well. And yes, they did figures based on multiple Superman Batman arcs. Because they definitely did Public Enemies. They did this. And they did With a Vengeance, if I'm not mistaken, the final arc.
They did.
Right?
Yes.
But I remember these because at the late, great alternate realities, I stared at those on the wall all the time. They didn't sell all that great. And we only sold them as a set. Oh. And so it was sort of an all or nothing proposition. And they really kind of sat there. But I stared at them forever. But anyway, I just was thinking of that line. And I wanted to mention that, in addition to the book and then, of course, the animated movie, you also had the line of action figures that tied into this as well.
That's cool.
But so you have Batman. I love Batman's role on Apocalypse here, where he heads into this armory that's housing all of these hell spores.
Yeah.
Like one can create a fire pit. He activates all 500, right? He's able to hack in. And then, I know I'm skipping ahead, but he's able to leverage Darkseid and get him to release Kara from this control that he's placed over her, because he threatens to essentially blow up this whole planet unless Darkseid releases her and disavows any claim to her. And I love, first of all, it's like the balls on this guy talking to Darkseid.
Like, he has no right really being even on Apocalypse.
Right.
But again, he's freaking Batman. And he's like, I got it. Like, I'm going to do what you guys can't do. While you're beating the crap out of each other, I'm going to go form some blackmail.
And I love how Darkseid is like so impressed with him.
Yes.
And he says, it's like, if the Kryptonian or the Amazon tried this, I wouldn't buy it because I know they don't have what it takes, but you're a human. Your kind kill each other all the time. Like, you have no hesitation to destroy a world.
It was amazing.
I think look, not that we have a flood of Batman Darkseid moments to choose from, but for me, it's just one notch below Final Crisis. I made a solemn vow about firearms, but for you, I'm going to make a once in a lifetime exception. That's still my favorite, but this is up there.
And that book gets a lot of flack. That's a solid read too, man.
What, Final Crisis?
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%. We stand here at Digging for Kryptonite, our official position. We stand by Final Crisis.
Our position.
It's the second best Crisis, in my opinion.
And you know what? That's saying a lot, because we've had a whole lot of damn crises lately over the last 30 years.
But so I love Batman's role on this. It's improbable and unlikely, but I love how he's able to manipulate Darkseid in that way. But then the Superman and Kara piece of this is that, yes, Kara is revealed as reborn in this dark version. How would you even describe her dark garb here?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it was almost like a fury, but it was almost like a draped, like ceremonial, like almost like witch kind of look.
And Darkseid claims she can leave if she wants to, but she doesn't want to. And she hits Superman and they battle.
Yeah.
And I mean, this whole idea is that Darkseid, and we don't see the brainwashing process. It's kind of given some discussion a little bit later, and we can sort of fill in the gaps from what we've seen in other iterations. But we know that Darkseid has scientists and magicians and torturers. Although at the same time, like, they did this fast, because I
was going to say, she wasn't there very long. She was there like for 4 hours. Like, what happened?
Yeah, this happened very quickly. But yeah, she's been put under his control because he wants her to now be the captain of the honor guard, lead the Furies the way Barda had before. So that's his whole play in this. There's a distinction here between the book and the movie. And once again, I favor the movie, because in the comic, the way Clark is able to subdue Kara, he pulls out a kryptonite ring that he had in his belt. Now, taking a page out of Bruce's book and everything, okay. And as painful as it is for him, he's able to power through and subdue her. Okay. But what I liked in the movie, there's no kryptonite business. Rather, he does one of his thunderclaps.
Yeah.
And knocks her out. And what I liked about that, to your point, yes, for all of this business about, she might be stronger than him. Okay. But he's still Superman. And I just like the fact that in that moment, he demonstrated, like, as much as I hold back,
I'm going to kick your ass.
When it comes to it, if I really have to, like, I'm going to stop you. And he did that. Yes. So I think the movie nailed that more effectively.
Yeah.
So he's able to subdue her. And then because of Batman's maneuvering, Darkseid lets them go, and he promises to not make any further moves against Kara. we have this return to Earth here. And I guess at this point, Clark's had enough. And so the idea is, okay, we're going to go to Smallville now.
Yes, we're going to take you to the Kents.
Right. Which leads us to the end of issue 5 and issue 6, where they're walking up the front steps of the house, and who's inside? Darkseid.
Mm-hmm.
And this
he
is
promised
now,
he would not. Yeah, he wouldn't come after Kara.
But Superman's death is long overdue. Now, here we're going to have a big split between the book and the movie. Well, I guess we'll talk about the book first. But so Darkseid attacks and fires his Omega beams at Superman. Kara darts in front and is seemingly vaporized, reduced to ashes. And that's our cliffhanger at the end of the penultimate issue.
Yes. And I it's interesting. I actually like the movie version of all of this better.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I want to, let's finish up the comic piece and then because I think the movie does a significantly better job with this. But
and explains it nicer, is a little more cleaner. But remind me how she's not a pile of ash.
Well, so what we find out after Superman's battle with Darkseid is that Superman anticipated that Darkseid would make a move. And so right before Kara was blasted by the Omega beams, they used the JLA teleporter system to get her out of there. And so that's the quote unquote twist at the end of the comic is, oh, she's still alive. She's sequestered on Paradise Island. But so before we get that reveal that she's still alive, she's seemingly dead. And Clark just unleashes on Darkseid. And I will say, to the comics credit, I love this moment where he's flying Darkseid into space. Because Darkseid's whole thing was like, oh, Kara would have had a glorious life. Yeah. Clark's like, glorious life. Like, you know nothing of that. Like, you don't know the joy of warm apple pie with vanilla ice cream and the magic of the movies and your first kiss and your first heartbreak. Like, you're this unfeeling monster. You know none of this.
Yeah.
And he takes him to the source wall and imprisons him with, quote unquote, the rest of the failures of the universe.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. I like that part because, like, philosophically and like comic-y, just really, really cool. But I think from a like presentation, I think it was done better in the film, but I really do like how that he's stuck in the source wall. And that comes eventually back to us late in the next time we see Darkseid.
Well, so the major distinction here is that in the movie, there's no business about Kara seemingly being vaporized.
Correct.
Right? She's blasted, and then Superman and Darkseid fight, and then Superman is largely neutralized for a piece of it, but then Kara has this amazing battle with Darkseid. Yeah. And so here's the thing. In the comic, it's the Superman Batman title. So the fact that we give that big climactic moment to Superman, okay. Yeah. But what you're missing in the comic and what you get in the movie is a moment for Kara. Like, you got to give this girl something to do at some point in this story. She's got to make some choice and take some action for herself. And unfortunately, the comic doesn't really make that space for her, but the movie does. And that battle was great.
Exactly. And also, I mean, he kidnapped her, brainwashed her, and tried to turn her against her cousin. She's got a few things to be pissed off about. So let her be pissed off. Like, that's what I liked about it.
Yeah. And so in the end, in the movie, it does require the two of them to take out Darkseid. And Superman blasts Darkseid with the heat vision into the boom tube, but then you find out Kara had reprogrammed the mother box. And so he's just out there in the middle of space. Yeah. So no, I thought the movie did a significantly better job with that climax. That really that went a long way. And then both stories end similarly, where she makes her debut on Paradise Island as Supergirl. Now, in the comic, you have the whole DCU there, whereas in the movie, they limited it to the Trinity and the Amazons.
And who we know,
Which I don't know if this was, they didn't want to have to design the other characters.
I think so.
They have to pay royalties. I don't know, but it felt like, it wouldn't have been the worst thing to see like a few other DCU characters in the movie.
Or at least the current Justice League lineup.
Something like that. Oh, we didn't mention this, but definitely worth mentioning the fact that the animated movie, among its other strengths, it actually emulated the art style of Michael Turner.
Which was impressive. And that was one thing that I really enjoyed about the movie, more than the other animated like adaptations, that it didn't really look like the first time we had The Death of Superman didn't really look like anything like that, like Dan Jurgens at all.
I've talked about this many times over the years, and it's going to be coming up in a very fun episode we have coming after the Supergirl movie, so stay tuned. But The sweet spot for me with these original animated movies, I love the adaptations of comic book storylines, and I like when they are done in the style of the artist, like New Frontier with Darwin Cook, Public Enemies with Ed McGuinness, Apocalypse with Michael Turner. So that was a very welcome artistic choice here to emulate the style of Michael. And I feel like especially Kara, it really, really felt like the version we had seen on the page.
Yeah, and I feel like they honored Michael Turner, but not trying, like, they didn't try to do it exactly, but they're like, hey, it should look like it.
Yeah.
I don't think they tried to do a copy.
One other distinction here that I once again give credit to the movie is that in the comic, Clark gives Kara the Supergirl costume on their way to Smallville. And there is this nice moment where he says, my mom made it for you. Great. We love that.
Yeah.
But the movie held off the costume until the very end. And I felt like that was the more appropriate spot for like at the culmination of this journey. So I like that in the movie, like at the very end, here she is, Supergirl.
Right. Because that's a good finish, because she starts off arrives as Kara, ends as Supergirl. And now it's a jump off into, even in the comics, it jumps off into a new series.
Right.
That she's Supergirl.
Before we segue into Power, the first arc of the subsequent Supergirl series that Jeph Loeb launched, anything else about the Supergirl from Krypton, the comic or the movie we didn't talk about that we should talk about?
I don't think so. We really hit a lot of things. I was impressed again. I think this is one of the animated films that is so closely aligned, like almost beat for beat in the right order, I think that's a joy. Some people don't always like that. They're like, oh, and maybe mess around with it. I'm like, no, I would really like to see these in live action mode or in animated mode, almost beat for beat. It'd be so cool to see.
Amen, brother. My last couple things before we segue is just, I know I said this before, but it really meant a lot to me that Clark has his own journey and gets to the point where he says to her, whatever you do next has to be your choice. And that was such a welcome reversal of the authoritarian Superman of the Silver Age, who was like, you're going to this orphanage, you're going to be my secret weapon, and you're not revealing yourself to the world until I tell you you're ready. There too, in the Silver Age, it took an absurdly long time before he even shared his secret identity. I mean, that was the whole thing at the jump when she arrived in that rocket. He's like, you can't live with me. I have a secret identity. You'd mess that up. But he doesn't even tell her what it is. Here, arguably, he shares that he's Clark Kent too soon. That's Batman's concern. But I'm glad that he let her in that way. And I'm glad that he ultimately was able to step back because he had his journey and then that allowed her to make her choice. So that went a long way. And then the last thing is that, I guess this is something that we're going to see be a bigger point moving forward. And especially in other media, like with Smallville, like with the Supergirl TV series with Melissa Benoist. But I know I said this before, but like this is the start of the Kara Zor-El who was meant to look after Kal-El. And I guess I just wanted to, because I've been talking about this and I'll just reiterate, I like this track. I think it's another way to kind of separate them. And it's compelling. It's like her whole reason for being is upended. So again, I think we'll get into that more moving forward in subsequent stories, but I guess just that change to the origin, how does that land with you?
I don't know. As far as it landing, I think it's important to always bring that up because that is kind of that should be mourned a little bit because she not only lost part of her identity, but she lost a lot of years where she should have been helping to raise Clark, but also like what she could have done on Earth to get them ready for Superman. That would have been huge. So yeah, there's a little bit of mourning there. Like, oh, we don't get that. So we should pay attention to it. We should bring it up, not all the time, but I think it's a fact that makes it really important about who she is.
Yeah. So after Kara Zor-El's reintroduction in Superman Batman, then in 2005, we have the launch of her solo series. Now, there was a prelude issue in Superman Batman number 19, which was then reprinted as Supergirl number 0.
Right.
That was written and drawn by Jeph Loeb and Ian Churchill, and that creative team would then do the first 5 issues, this power arc of the solo series. And essentially, it's Kara Zor-El's tour through the DCU, encountering and unfortunately, in every instance, battling members of the JSA and the Teen Titans and the Outsiders and the Justice League. And ultimately culminating in this showdown with Lex Luthor in his war suit with the kryptonite gauntlet. He unleashes black kryptonite on her, which separates her into her good and evil versions. We'll get into it more specifically, but I guess just overall impressions of this one.
I guess I actually really enjoyed reading it. I was annoyed by what you just brought up too. It's like, why does everybody, she's clearly new, like she's new to the landscape, but do we not realize Superman trusted her? Do we not know what just happened? Why is the first confrontation a hard one or a bad one or a misunderstanding? It's like, guys, it's terrible. It's a bad trope. And they did it like 4 times.
That's the thing. I wouldn't have minded a little variety. I mean, I get that they're leaning into a theme here, but it did get repetitive. It was a bit much. I'll be honest. I really, really had fun going back through the Superman Batman arc. I mean, dude, it was like I time traveled back to the late high school years. And I was awesome. Back in that mode and thinking about being at the store and seeing it. It really, really brought me back. And I had a great time going back to those issues, the personal significance. But I mean, I remember at the time, because I read these issues as they came out, the Power arc, I remember not getting quite as much out of them. And then similarly upon reread, I don't hate this arc or anything like that, but it doesn't resonate as much. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It just becomes the same note being played over and over. Yes. I mean, to give a real quick rundown for people, in issue 1, she goes to New York to the JSA because she wants to talk to Power Girl, understandably so. But when they shake hands or whatnot, Power Girl goes berserk and attacks. Yeah. Now, there's more to this that will tie into Infinite Crisis and her true origins. We can circle back to that. But then at the end of that first issue, she figures, okay, maybe someone from the super family, my own age, maybe that's a better track. So she goes to the farm to talk to Connor. And at this point in time, he had been brainwashed by Lex and had removed himself from the team and sequestered himself on the farm. So when she shows up, he thinks either Superman or the Teen Titans sent her there and he attacks her. Yeah. They calm down. Then the Teen Titans show up and Cassie attacks Kara because she's a girl talking to Connor. Yeah,
it's a really badly written portion.
Then Starfire from the Outsiders, 'cause this is the point in time we are in the DCU. We've got Teen Titans, we've got the Outsiders. I have a lot of fondness for this era and those teams. Yeah. But Starfire shows up. She'll have some information. Kara thinks, survivor of a dead world, maybe something along that, on that note. Instead, what we find out a little bit later is that the Outsiders have been tracking who's watching Kara. You know, the audience knows it's Calculator and Lex, but she doesn't know. She just knows someone's watching her. And the Outsiders, they've been running some background intel. But you pick up that third issue, I suppose, and she's training with the Outsiders. But a bunch of savages, and they're like really going after her.
Yeah, it seemed really harsh for training.
Yeah. I mean, it's only when Dick intervenes when he's like, guys, like, what the hell are you doing?
Like, you're going to kill her. Stop. What are you doing?
Yeah. So
she's going to kill you.
Right. So, and then as we get deeper into that issue, they do get a lead on the Watcher, i.e. Lex, and she takes off without them. She sabotages their jet because she wants to handle this on her own. And that's when Lex gets the drop on her, hits her with the black kryptonite, separates her into the good and evil version, the dark version, where it's the black version of her costume. And then, like I said, the dark Kara and Lex battle on the JLA Watchtower. And then we build to our big finish here where we have the good versus evil Supergirl. But this tour through the DCU, I mean, easy to sit here and Monday morning quarterback it all these years later, but it's just like, I feel like there could have been another track here where maybe there are some misunderstandings, but do we have to do this at every turn?
Well, and that's the thing, like, ultimately, I think it needed to be the road to Lex. But it just seemed like we just wanted to have all these characters in here. And if so, do they have to fight? Like, couldn't she, instead of fighting them, help? Like, they started the JSA thing, which was awesome, where they're having a hard time with Solomon Grundy, and she goes, I am done. And they're like, all right. And I think in the narration, it even says the whole JSA is struggling, and it just needed one Kryptonian punch to take them out.
Well, so before that, what I did love, I guess, in fairness, she does have a nice back and forth with Stargirl. They don't fight. And then, when she does intervene to help them with Grundy, in the narration, to your point, she says that, but she's also like, Clark warned me about this, that sometimes the other superheroes get upset when they spend all this time and then we come in with one punch.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the core idea of, hey, we're going to introduce her to all of these teams. I mean, there's another version of this where she's trying out with each of these teams.
Yes.
Or she's just spending time and learning that.
Do you remember the Kyle Rayner, when he becomes Green Lantern, there's the Hero's Quest.
Oh,
arc.
Yeah.
So he's just visiting different heroes. Like, that was done where there wasn't conflict. It was learning what they do, how they do, and how he can be a good hero. That's all she had to do. Like, alongside the Titans. You're a teenager. She should be with the Titans.
I mean, look, in fairness to Kara, I guess it's not like she's instigating any of these fights. So she doesn't come off poorly in that sense. But I came away from most of those issues just feeling bad for her. And I don't think pity is the feeling that you necessarily want to elicit from your reader, honestly.
Yes. And again, no offense if Jeph is listening to this. I'm not poo-pooing on an awesome arc, but it's just one of those over and over again. I kind of understand the Connor of it all because he was going through something traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
After everything past that seemed just unnecessary to me.
Yeah, like Cassie in particular, that felt like a disservice to her character. So
or to women.
And to women, I didn't get a ton out of this. This is very minor, but worth noting because we've been talking about justice for Linda Danvers, and we don't want Matrix or Linda to be forgotten, and we're excited for whatever potential returns are coming and all of that. But I did like it's minor, but there is a bit. I think it's in that first issue where via narration, Kara's talking about how I found out there were other Supergirls before me. That's about as far as it goes. Like, it's a line. Yeah. But it's at least some acknowledgement. And I have to wonder if Jeph Loeb even had to fight for that, knowing Dan DiDio's mindset.
Right.
Because we'll get to a point, I think it's post-Infinite Crisis, where DiDio was like, Linda Danvers never existed or Matrix never existed. I mean, obviously now we've opened that back up a little bit. But I wonder if even that line required any sort of negotiation.
Right. If it's only one, it's interesting. I really did like, if we're going to go a little bit more in depth, beat by beat, like the JSA, I think of all the issues, the JSA issue and then the JLA with Lex stuff is what hit the best for me. I think the others were getting us there.
Sure. And actually, on the note of the JSA, I did want to carve out a couple of minutes here just to talk about Power Girl. Now, for anyone who's been following this event, are you going to do a Power Girl episode? No. But that's kind of what I want to talk about here, because we know, right, Power Girl was introduced in the 70s in the Bronze Age as the Kara Zor-El of Earth 2 in pre-crisis territory.
Right.
Post-crisis, she had a couple of different potential origins that she and the audience were kind of presented with and had to grapple with. And there was a time where she thought she was the cousin of Superman. Then there was a stretch where she thought she was the granddaughter of an Atlantean sorcerer. At this point in time, her powers have been fluctuating. She's been having these glitches. And then when she comes into contact with Kara, goes berserk and starts attacking. And I think it's terrific who has an explanation about them. Essentially, how does he describe it?
Well, he basically says, theoretically, the same person can't occupy the same space.
Right.
But again, it was a stretch.
Because what this is building towards, right? Not long after this, there's going to be that JSA Classified 4-parter starring Power Girl by Jeph Johns and Amanda Conner. And that's really going to be teeing up Infinite Crisis. I did reread that arc, and basically,
cool.
You have Psycho Pirate manipulating Power Girl and presenting her with manifestations of all of these different people from all of these different possible origins, like the Atlantean sorcerer, the Legion of Superheroes claim she's a lost member, the Crime Syndicate claims she's a lost member, all of these different possibilities, trying to break her down mentally, right, to come to terms with who she actually is. And then we'll get the true payoff in Infinite Crisis, where you find out she actually is the Kara Zor-El of Earth 2. Right. And when the multiverse became a universe at the end of Crisis, she somehow slipped through the cracks. She's this anomaly. But
Yeah.
when she encounters the Earth 2 Superman and Lois, right? Everything is unlocked. All those memories come flooding back. She remembers who she is.
Yeah.
And unless I'm mistaken, I mean, that's been the origin. That's been the backstory ever since that. Yes, she is the Earth 2 Kara Zor-El. I guess the reason we're not doing a dedicated episode, it leads me to this question, which is like, to what extent do you really view Power Girl as a Supergirl analog, as a member of the super family? Because it's like, rationally, I know she is for the reasons I just said, but I really just kind of put her in her own category. I think about her with the JSA. Like, I love those stories. I just don't think of her in this mode.
Gosh, that's a really interesting. Like, why would we not? Well, honestly, I think the easiest answer for me is because DC proper never really made it a big deal. They never identified her as Supergirl. So even in this issue, like Power Girl Karen says, I think the hardest thing to see you is that part of my identity has always been as Superman's cousin. So if you're here, who does that make me? So, like, DC's blatantly saying in this issue that they're both the same person. And if you look at the art, Churchill draws them exactly the same with just different hair. So they're not saying they're different people. They're the same people. But I guess to me it was never really defined as Supergirl. So it was more of I hate to say this, but like, she was a misfit. Like, she didn't really fit in. That was just her history. But she's awesome. Like, she's kick-ass in all the JSA stuff.
Yeah.
But she's never really been in Superman books. So I never really thought of her as a super family person.
Yeah. Like, I really think of her more in that David Goyer, Jeph Johns, JSA series, more than I think of her as a super family character. And I know people listening might have a completely different perspective. I guess the other reason why we're not like doing a dedicated episode, at least not yet, I might do a Patreon thing at some point, is that, I don't know, JSA aside, where she's a member of this team, I mean, are there standout Power Girl stories that you would really cite? I mean, the one thing that is on my radar is the year-long Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Connor run that they did.
Okay.
And
I never read it, but I know of it.
Immediately, I think post Infinite Crisis. That's on my. I'll get there at some point. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of hard pressed to really point to anything.
I mean, I would see more value talking about her importance if you were ever to do a JSA discussion.
At some point, yes.
Yeah, like, I'm looking at your other, like, the Justice, like the other side, the sidebar ones. But I just don't know there's enough.
I will say there's a reason for those who follow all of the Patreon content. There's a reason why we haven't really done anything in the Justice Society space yet. Because when we do it, like, we're really going to do, I love the Justice Society, and I'm like saving it basically is the point. Yeah. But I did just want to spend a moment here to acknowledge Power Girl. Like, we talked about this when we did our Supergirl and the DCAU episode. I like the Galatea business. And hardcore Power Girl fans might not have, but I like that because it's like really playing on this idea of her being this doppelganger, and making her this villain that
and more adult version almost. Too,
that Kara has to overcome. Like, I thought that worked well. So I guess I don't have a true attachment to the character, and whatever attachment I do have stems more from her role in the JSA. But I did want to mention that, especially because she's here in this power arc of Supergirl. So you said that the battle with Lex between Dark Supergirl, that really jumped out at you?
Well, and I think for me, what jumps out is when Starfire is with her and Lex lasers through Starfire's shoulder and takes her out. And it's the first rant of Lex with Supergirl. That's where I was like, oh boy, he's really he's laying into her, not just physically, but like why he hates her, and just goes off into just digging into her, ranting on just how unimpressive she is. And then he makes some comment that I knew I would not fly today. That I was about having just because you have an S on a much less impressive chest, and I was like, Wait, what? Did he just? I don't know if it threw you, but it got me. I was like, what? That's not okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we spent a lot of time talking about the Byrne era Lex, and there he's perving on a 15-year-old Lois Lane when she's being strip searched via the security footage and the whole indecent proposal business, and surrounding himself with all of these female associates who he takes advantage of. Like,
it's weird.
But like that was part of the take on the character. Like there was the sexual component to it, but I do feel like we had moved past that at this point.
Yeah.
So that was why it was jarring.
He was like almost body shaming her too. Like, you're just small and you're weak. And I was like, are we back at this part?
Yeah, I really felt like we had moved past that sexual creepiness of the character.
Yes.
So that just felt felt out of step. So, but yes, that definitely jumped out at me as well.
I was just going to say, I think that whole rant, and then how I think Supergirl's narration in that issue was interesting, because she was thinking about how this battle with Lex is the equivalent to Superman's battle with Doomsday.
Right.
How this is her, like, this could be her defining battle that she has to deal with to get over this, because she's an unknown and Lex is unknown to her too. Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed Lex. He is at like the peak of Lex evil at this point in like where we know him.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Lex who had been a president and presided over our worlds at war, and then was injecting himself with a concoction of Bane venom and kryptonite and lost it. So yeah, this is a Lex really on the fringe now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the creepy comment aside, it's like, yeah, this was, I think, kind of interesting from his perspective. I think in terms of the Supergirl of it all, thematically, right, this ties back to what Darkseid had done to Kara in the previous arc. And look, I mean, not to harp on this, but going back to Superman Batman, it's like, yeah, you want her to finally have a moment for herself. The movie gave her that, because it's not like in that initial arc, she broke free of Darkseid's programming. It's like he let her go because of Batman's machination. So, maybe that would have been a moment that we could have given to her as well. But in any event, there's this idea coming out of Superman Batman of, did Darkseid make her evil, or did he simply exploit a darkness that was already there? And
which we're seeing here.
Darkness is made real when we have this black kryptonite split. And once again, we think of Smallville and black. I mean, because Smallville brought forth black kryptonite.
Right. And now, and again, I'm not as great as you with this, but that Onyx episode where Lex splits, is that black kryptonite that does that to him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it brings out, I think the split idea was really neat. And again, I'm looking at my Superman 3 like poster, and I'm like, oh, kind of evil Superman and Clark Kent.
Something to be said for that. And I like the ultimate payoff where Kara, because there's this business, Superman blasts both of them to see how they'll react, but then they switch costumes and all. But in any event, the good Kara has Wonder Woman tie both of them up with the lasso of truth and reveal her true self. And then it's the good Kara who's there. But at the beginning of the 5th issue, it opens with evil Kara explaining what was really going on when she departed Krypton. And here is the beginning of the evil Zor-El idea. Because what she says at this point is that Zor-El didn't send her to Earth to care for baby Kal-El, but to kill him.
Yeah. Well, and there's even a reference to, I think, Cain and Abel. That's that Jor-El and Zor-El were not loving, friendly brothers.
Okay, so do you know where this goes in the book after this Loeb arc?
I know. I have not read this.
So from what I have skimmed through between Loeb and Gates, and what I have read of that time, I think it was...
That's Rucka. It's Greg Rucka.
For one issue. So there was...
Oh, it's only one.
He was meant to be the new writer. He ended up writing one issue and supplying the plot for the next one. Something went down and he left the book. Got it. And Joe Kelly took over for a good chunk. And then I think it was Kelly Puckett who did a bunch of issues before Sterling Gates.
Yes. And Churchill stays on it for a little while.
He does.
Yeah.
Now, from what I know from my hardcore Supergirl fans, I hear from, I don't believe that stretch before Gates, including this Loeb arc, to be honest, but especially what came between Loeb and Gates, was particularly well received, and it really leaned
Oh, okay.
into angry Kara. She starts smoking at one point.
Oh,
These issues include the infamous moment that's always cited of her like bent over a pool table saying, "Don't look at my S," sort of thing.
Oh.
Like really leaning into that mode of the character, right? But those Joe Kelly issues, our pal Joe Kelly, it does flesh out further this whole idea of Zor-El being evil. Now, I guess before I lay it out, let me say it's ultimately all retconned away.
Yeah.
Okay. But what we get in those Joe Kelly issues, you get these flashbacks, and basically there was this moral philosophical divide on Krypton between Zor-El and Jor-El, because Jor-El was the Phantom Zone jailer. And Zor-El was opposed to this philosophically. Okay, great ideological difference between them. We probably could have stopped there. I think that's interesting enough. Okay. But then, so the idea is that there are indigenous phantoms in the zone who are upset about that realm being used to house prisoners. And so these original phantoms, not Kryptonians put in there, but phantoms who were there to begin with, start possessing people on Krypton, and Zor-El is able to see them and kills them. It gets way too dark. And I do genuinely think the idea is that he's seeing them. I don't know if they were necessarily meant to be there.
Right.
So I'm sure I'm not 100% on all of the specifics, and people who read all of those issues can speak to it more specifically, but that's the gist of it, is that Zor-El was seeing these phantoms possessing Kryptonians and was killing them. And then ultimately he and his family were going to be banished, but then we had the destruction of the planet Krypton, and he sent Kara to Earth to kill Cal. So like we were leaning into that. Now, even before it gets so convoluted, but even before Sterling Gates, I think it was the Kelly Puckett issues, unless I'm mistaken on that front, but there was a subsequent writer before Sterling Gates, and there Kara was reliving memories, and they were different. So very shortly after this evil Zor-El business, we had conflicting memories. Then Sterling Gates comes on board, smooths it all out, because that's when we have the return of Zor-El and Allura.
Right.
And basically this idea, Kara had been suffering from kryptonite poisoning. And that's why she was having all of these weird, twisted memories. So
they're all delusions.
Yes.
Okay.
So all of this gets wiped away.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's worth it. We talked about it at least, because it's a part. And when we get to Smallville, the TV show, when we get to Zor-El as Cyborg Superman in the New 52 and the Rebirth era, this idea of, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no.
Well, we got an episode coming up that's going to lay it all out for you.
Oh, exciting. Okay, cool.
But all to say that like this idea of evil Zor-El has its roots here.
Oh,
that's
cool.
Yeah, right. I mean, mileage will vary, but there you go.
Yeah.
Circling back to Power, though, right? And I mean, I guess we kind of laid out the main beats and the ultimate resolution. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I suppose my question for you here as we wind it down is like, how effective do you think this was as a kickoff arc to her series in terms of what it explores and where it leaves her?
I think it had good intentions, because I think it was, to be honest, it's hard coming out of what it came out of. That Supergirl arc in Superman Batman's so strong. You got to follow it up with, okay, how are we going to introduce her to the DC universe? And I think, again, sometimes you have some swings and misses. And I think the way they approached it was a miss, but the idea was a hit, like to try to get her through, and ultimately to do this kind of neat split, and to understand that her dark side of her doesn't need to be taken away. It's a part of who she is, but is she dark or is she good? She's good. I did kind of like, but I also thought it was a little condescending, but at the end of issue 5, I think Supergirl says something they thought that Supergirl's more powerful than Clark, and he says, "Oh, don't believe everything you hear."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh damn, he just kind of right away slams it. But he's also like, I'm Superman, she's Supergirl. Let's keep that in check.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think the tour through the DCU idea was viable. Yeah. I don't love the way it manifested. I wouldn't have minded if this established more of a status quo for her moving forward. Like, who's her supporting cast going to be? Where's she going to be?
Right.
Where's she going to be based?
Where's she based? Yes. So is there a city that she has? Like,
something, right? And I wonder if that's part of the reason why maybe she arguably floundered a little bit post this. Like, I don't know that there was enough grounding here for the character. And then the other thing is, like, I don't know, I'm of two minds about this, because on the one hand, I say to myself, as far as the good and evil split, it's like, we already had bad Kara in the last arc. It's like, do we need to do this again? But I guess the counter argument is, well, this is the follow-up or the payoff to that, and exploring this question about whether she's evil or whether the evil was created or was always part of her. So it's like, all right, I guess I can go along with that.
And I think it was also a good end to the, like, okay, this kryptonite's not going to do it. This friend's not going to do it. But black kryptonite, that's going to get her. Yeah. And I kind of like that.
But I guess on a positive note, and especially thinking about the Superman Batman arc, it's like, as much as we've gotten these different spins on Smallville and the Melissa Benoist series, and we're poised for another one with the forthcoming movie, and of course we've had different comic book runs with Sterling Gates and New 52 and Rebirth and the current Sophie Campbell series and Woman of Tomorrow, of course. Nevertheless, it's like all of them in some way, shape, or form, I would argue, like, can be traced back to what's established here in Superman Batman. I mean, I think like this really set the template. And in Loeb and Turner's, not even defense, but to their credit, I think there was a very rich groundwork that was laid here that all of these stories have been able to continue to build upon. Is there anything we haven't said that you want to say, my friend?
I don't think so, man. I personally would like to see Supergirl more present, and at least in, and not just because of the movie, but I think more present as the female counterpart to Superman. I think it helps. I know my girls both loved Supergirl growing up, whether it was the animated series, they had the figures, they had the Supergirl version. I mean, both of them at one point have dressed up as Supergirl for Halloween. Like, I just think it's nice to have that character present, but also unique in a way too.
This was an absolute blast, man. I was so looking forward to this. I'm so glad that we spent the time. We really dug in here to these stories. So I thank you so much. What do you want to share with folks about what's going on at All Yeah Comics?
Oh gosh, man, we had a great free comic book day. Just, again, that is always one of the shop's best days, and it's a great weekend. We're very different. That Skokie is also a very large Jewish community. So because Free Comic Book Day is on a Saturday, that kind of cuts out a part of the population that can't always participate. So Joe, the manager, and the staff put together basically a full weekend. So it wasn't just that Saturday, but also Sunday. And it just brings in so many people, new to comics, old to comics, kids, all that kind of stuff. And it just really sets the tone for the summer and kind of kicks off the community rebooting where people have more free time. But it was a great day. I don't think we have any signings coming up, but just always fun to see the new stock coming in, and with the Supergirl movie coming out. And I think it's just fun to have a lot of good things to talk about right now in the comics community.
Right on. Yeah, no, I encourage everyone to check out the All Yeah Comics family of stores. Visit in person if you're able to. If not, follow on social media, check out the website. And when the new Supergirl movie comes out, it coincides with your birthday, right? And not just any birthday, but a milestone, no less.
It comes out on my 50th birthday, the big 50. So I will get to go see that with my family as we're visiting the East Coast, which is fun. So
awesome. Well, I wish you an early happy birthday on behalf of myself and the whole Digging for Kryptonite community. We appreciate all of your contributions to the podcast. Everyone's always excited when you come on. I love talking to you. We love having you back, and you'll be back again before too long. So thank you, Bernie. Thank you, audience. Keep tuning in next week. The Kara Kent of Smallville with Always Hold On to Smallville host Zach Moore. You don't want to miss it. Until then, as always, it's about what you do. It's about action. Support the show and receive exclusive content by becoming a member at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato. Rewards include our DCU spinoff podcast, advanced listens, sponsorship opportunities, and more. My sincere thanks to all patrons. Please rate and review the podcast via your platform of choice, subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and continue the conversation by joining us on social media. By popular demand, Digging for Kryptonite merch is available at our TeePublic store. Visit the link in the show notes to get your DFK shirts, hats, mugs, and more. Flat Squirrel Podcast is also home to Lighting the Bat Signal, a Batman fan journey, which applies the signature Digging for Kryptonite approach to the Dark Knight, as well as another exciting episode in the Adventures of Superman, now in its final year covering the classic George Reeves series. Subscribe today. Digging for Kryptonite is a Flat Squirrel production. Key art by Isaiah Simmons and theme music by Dan Pritchard.